Hello, this is Susan Duclos. It's All News Pipeline. It's April 27th, 2017. And we're going to talk about political terrorism. Threats of political violence are seeing events canceled. The latest one is in Portland, Oregon. Organizers have canceled the 82nd Avenue of Rose Parade. And the reason they did it was because of threats of political violence, because there was Republicans that were going to participate in the event. It says a threatening email has derailed one of the Portland Rose Festival's signature events and spurred new debate about the ongoing political protests in Portland. This isn't just political protest. This is political terrorism. They're, they're issuing threats of violence. They're terrorizing the people into canceling these events. It was originally scheduled this Saturday, April 29th. The parade is meant to highlight the local community and businesses along Southeast 82nd Avenue. Uh, Supposedly, it says here, it's aiming to turn around the negative perception many people have of the area. Well, I'd say that's not going to work very much. The email that was sent said, "You've seen how much power we have downtown, and the police cannot stop us from shutting down roads. So please consider your decision wisely," the anonymous email said, telling organizers they could cancel the Republican group's registration or face action from the protesters, saying this is non-negotiable. Now, we're going to go over to the Atlantic. By all accounts, the Atlantic is a left of the center site, and even they are having a serious problem with this. They headline with a chilling threat of political violence in Portland, saying activists threatened to drag local Republicans off the parade route if they weren't excluded from the local celebration. Organizers canceled the entire event in response. Now, there's a lot in here. Basically, it's the same, thing, speaking out against this political terrorism. But at the end, it says, so long as threats of violence succeed in causing events to get shut down by their risk adverse organizers, more threats will be made. One wonders who this faction on the left will next label a Nazi or a fascist in order to justify their own use of fascist tactics. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're claiming to be anti fascist, but they're suppressing free speech because they disagree with it using threats of violence. That's fascism. Now, lately, what we've seen, Ann Coulter has canceled her event at Berkeley. Let's take a look at that real quick. This is from Reuters. Conservative commentator Ann Coulter has canceled her speech planned for this week at the University of California's Berkeley campus after a dispute with university officials who feared violent protests over whether a safe venue could be found. Coulter said, "There will be no speech. I look over my shoulder. My allies had joined the other team." Now, she's being facetious here because we do have the statement from the YAF saying why they had to pull their support or their sponsorship from her planned event, which was scheduled by them and another group. And in there, you'll see that they had found out that in the previous protest, police were ordered to stand down and basically let the rioters and the cowardly thugs in black masks called Antifa do whatever they wanted without ramification. Let's take a look at that. This is a statement from the Young Americans Foundation, and they confirmed Ann Coulter would speak at the UC Berkeley as part of YA's National Campus Lecture Program on April 27th. They said when that happened, they assumed UC Berkeley would take all steps necessary to ensure the safety of students attending the educational event. In the meantime, we discovered the University of California Police Department at Berkeley had an official stand-down policy for any situation that develops on campus as long as the situation doesn't involve the imminent loss of life. So in other words, the $100,000 destruction on campus back when Milo's event had to be canceled That didn't matter as long as, life wasn't going to be lost. They could destroy whatever they want, and they're basically being giving free rein to do this. It says allowing the leftist thugs who have terrorized Berkeley's campus to do so without consequence. Now, they had a few things they needed: central location to guarantee safety, room holding hundreds of participants, and as of 4 p.m. today, UC Berkeley failed to meet our demands after refusing to provide a proper venue for 6 weeks. Berkeley made it impossible to hold a lecture due to the lack of assurances for protections from foreseeable violence from unrestrained leftist agitators. Berkeley should be ashamed for creating this hostile atmosphere. As a parent, as a taxpayer, I want the next generation to learn in an educational environment, not a circus, said Ron Robinson, president of the Young America's Foundation, to the Washington Examiner. I had the misfortune of being in a leftist riot as a student, and I wouldn't want to put my children or anyone else's children into that situation without assurances law enforcement would protect them. Now, we have seen multiple videos where police were asked, there's violence going on down the street. Why are you just standing here? And the cops would just say, okay, and they just stood there. They did nothing. That's because they were given a stand down order. Now, take a look at this too. ACLU defends Coulter. We must protect speech. ACLU, an organization that I rarely agree with. But when you have liberal organizations, when you have people like Bill Maher calling the Berkeley campuses a place for effing babies now instead of, the home of free speech. When you have Bernie Sanders standing up for someone like Ann Coulter, who he completely disagrees with on almost everything, but standing up for her right to be able to speak, then you know that these thugs, these political terrorists, are driving their own party away now. And let's get to exactly what the problem is here, because that's the bottom line, folks. See this man? Ted Wheeler. He's the mayor of Portland. See his political party? Democratic Party. Now let's move along. See this woman, Kate Brown? She is the governor of Oregon, Democratic Party. This man is Jesse Aragon. He's the mayor of Berkeley, Democratic Party. And this is Jerry Brown, governor of California, Democratic Party. The problem is you're not seeing things like this happen in Texas, where you have a governor that would put his foot down on the throats of these mass terrorists that held signs saying, become ungovernable. This is war. No, it's happening in states, in cities that have democratic, progressive, liberal leaders that are not putting their foot down, that are telling their police to stand down, that are allowing this political terrorism. All the ones that I just showed you are places that, well, look at Berkeley. Since February, there have been 3 riots in order to cancel events. How many convictions has anyone heard of? Feel free to speak up in the comment section. I doubt you're going to hear of many, if any, because they don't care. They are encouraging this behavior. They are encouraging this political terrorism. Now, I've heard everything from Mark Levin, or Levine, I don't know how to pronounce his name, saying federalize the National Guard. Well, yeah, there's arguments to be made to where something has to be done, and then there's arguments against it saying, okay, that's a slippery slope on the way to martial law in those areas. So what it's up to is the people. The people that live there are voting in these governors and these mayors that are doing nothing, that are actually supporting these political terrorists. And if the voters aren't going to do anything about it, I'm with Trump on this one. Federal funding. He has to strip federal funding. Now, I know that when it came to Sanctuary City, federal funding, a liberal judge that actually raised $200,000 in campaign money for Obama, was the judge that blocked his clawback of funds that has already been approved by Obama for places like California sanctuary cities. But that was for fiscal year 2016. When it comes to the new applications, he needs to simply stop funding any state that's going to allow something like this. Literally allow political terrorists, give terrorists a platform. This is no better than ISIS. These people burned up buildings, vandalized buildings. They were hitting people in the face with skateboards and wrapping locks in cloth and slamming people. Now they're talking about organizing and having combat training because at the last Berkeley riot, they got their butts handed to them by patriots that had decided they weren't putting it up with it anymore. Problem is, if you leave it up to the patriots, you're going to have a civil war here in America. So the government has got to do something. What? I'm not really sure, but he's going to have to go after their funding, and he's going to have to go after it hard. These people need to be stopped because we have political terrorism happening right now in America, and Democratic governors and mayors of towns are simply allowing it to happen.